So those are all, those parameters are, still to come. And we'll be working on those things as we're kind of going through the process of the proposal as well. So, or before we send out the proposal, because the proposals would have all those things actually nailed down, so that the artist knows exactly what they're going to be looking for and what they're going to be looking for. So as I was going along, the request for qualifications, the request for proposal, the last couple of things are funding. So right now, we've agreed that we're seeking something in the neighborhood of $25,000, probably at a minimum, for the entire project. And again, we're doing a number of different murals on both sides of the alley. Possible sources we're looking at: Westchester Arts has a grant that we're going to apply to. We're also thinking about chamber, local businesses, the village, and private donations. And
good, Stuart.
yeah, and then the final thing on the proposal, on the report, is the timeline. So project completed June 1st. We have a celebration, a party out there, just as the weather is warming up, and we're celebrating the rebirth of Pleasantville after this hard time that we've been going through. That is our report.
Sounds great.
Excellent.
So are you, whatever is produced, you're envisioning to be quasi-permanent, right? I mean, this isn't a changing thing.
Well,
or is it?
That ends up, I think, partly being about what kind of materials that we use and how it's applied. So, for instance, if we did the thing where you have panels, it's a little bit easier to switch that out. If we did the vinyl applique, that's a fairly easy thing. I mean, these are all costly things, but I mean, if they needed to come down, if for some reason we decided we wanted to do something new, I think in some ways maybe easier than painting over and then repainting,
Right.
I don't actually know what is easier and what is cheaper and all those things. That's part of the research that still has yet to happen.
So we
The
should,
moving part is also obviously building owners and, their concern about, holes being put into their walls and who fixes that. And so we have to react to whatever it is that they prefer.
right. So related but unrelated, in my day job, we've just been working on this thing for Colby College, a building in Waterville, Maine, that is partly visiting art studio, but it has changeable panels. So
And what?
changeable panels.
Oh, indoors or outdoors?
Outdoors, with the idea that the artist is producing these panels or producing the artwork in the studio. Some of it may be artwork direct on the panels. Sometimes it may be artwork that in the end gets photographed and scanned and printed. But the idea, it's a series of 4x8 panels with the idea that it's a manifestation of the work going on in the building and that it would change over time as the occupants change.
Right.
That obviously isn't what we have going on here, but it's just an interesting idea.
I'm open to that idea. I mean,
I mean, one nice thing about it is if folks are not that thrilled with one artist's work, which occasionally happens,
just wait around.
just wait around,
We'll have
right?
something new for you to hate.
Right.
Well, I do love that idea. I mean, I think the downside of it is that, the amount of time and money and energy, and every time you replace it, it's like the whole process starts again.
Yes, right. It's a costly venture, right? And in this case, there's a built-in mechanism to make that happen. So,
I mean, I think from the jury's point of view, because I think the committee is going to be part of the jurying process, and and obviously we're going to have other people that we're going to recruit to jury as well, so that the community is represented. But the idea being that we're going to try and get as much of the community input as possible, so that we don't end up with something that doesn't adhere to community standards, kind of thing. But on the other hand, we don't want to be too restrictive, because art's purpose in a lot of ways is to challenge. So there's that nice little tightrope that you walk there.
right. I mean, we're not trying to paint a Norman Rockwell on the wall.
No.
No, I mean, I like the idea that you outlined of looking for something more sophisticated so that you're sort of setting another marker of Pleasantville as an
Yeah.
art-centered community.
Yes,
I think
absolutely.
that's a
I mean, I think you can tell, when something is, it's kind of pushing the envelope a little bit, but does it in such a way that's not gonna, cause, torches and pitchforks. So,
yeah.
I think everybody who's gonna be involved in it, in the jury process is gonna be very sensitive and aware of that.
I'm sure.
So
Yeah.
it really becomes about, finding the right creative solution and making it work as best. I mean, there'll always be somebody who's not, happy with it, I think, but hopefully we will, take that down to a super minimum.
We know nothing about that.
Yeah.
Everything we do is extremely
Exactly.
popular.
Everything you guys do, rightly so.
I want to thank you for the initiative here, and I heard a bit about it from Marlene some months ago, but it's nice to see where things are heading. I had a couple of, I guess, logistical questions. One is, will you give each artist a designated amount of space, or will it depend on what comes in for the RFPs? Or will it be you get your 8 by 4 feet or something, and then it kind of goes down the line and everyone gets paid the same? Or are you going to just wait and see what comes in, and then if someone has a grander vision, they get a larger honorarium and like a bigger wall? How are you planning that out just for the?
Yeah, I mean, we've been discussing this, and I think the idea, it's a little bit of both. My vision is that we would have sort of predetermined spaces, but if somebody came in and said, you know what, there's space A and space B and space C, I want to have all 3 of them, and here's my idea.
Mm-hmm.
That's going into the jurying process, and then the jury might say, you know what, we love that idea. We want them to have A, B, and C. So each segment would be of kind of equal value in a sense, or more or less equal space. And if somebody had such a great idea that they wanted to use the entire alley, we might consider that too. And it's just one artist doing the entire alley. And if they could prove to us that they are capable of making that actually happen, that's a lot of it as well.
Sure.
We need to know that if they have this like fantastic grand idea, that they could actually pull it off.
Yeah.
And they have to have the logistics, and they have to have they have to prove to us what their plan is and how they're going to do it, how much help are they going to have, technically, what do they need to do, and so forth and so on. So yeah, that's a little bit still in motion, but that's the basic idea. I think we've actually really got it there.
Okay. My second question is about lighting. I haven't thought about Jackson Alley at night. I don't really go there at night or much, but what is it? I mean, is there a sense that lighting would be a part of this, or is that, or it just kind of a daytime view, event where that you view?
Yeah, it's a really great question too. That's something we haven't really explored. We have talked about the idea that somebody might propose a projection, for instance, which could be fantastic, but pretty much would only work at night.
Right.
So we're been kind of going down to this notion that it is kind of a daylight thing.
Yeah.
Of course, there is some lighting in the alley, and if we end up deciding, this has to be seen at all hours, we might, cook into this some new lighting just to make sure that it can be seen.
Yeah. Well, the reason I ask is, for a good part of the year, it's dark at 5 p.m.
Yeah.
And if part of the idea is people are coming out to dinner and going to the Burns and experiencing Pleasantville, that that alley may, the people that you want most to see it might not see it.
That's good. That's a very good point.
And there could be some kind of lighting that's on a timer that it goes off at 9 p.m. or comes on at 5 and goes off at 9 or something.
Well, and maybe, you already
which would also draw attention to.
That's when we sort of come back to you, because we'll actually do a walk through. I mean, I think you line items like improvements of the alley, and we're sort of not looking for anything significant. And so we'll just look at it and to see what is just needed without spending an
Mhm.
awful lot of money.
Yeah.
And so maybe lighting is one thing. We have to do a walkthrough with Jim Coleman. I don't know if you know him. And so he's always great at looking at how to, update a space without
Mhm.
spending, a great deal of money.
So in the category of getting ahead of my colleagues, I think some improved lighting is something we certainly could fund. Any, say everyone seems okay so far. We've
Well,
t-
I mean, you can
What-
give like a history of years ago.
So,
they
there are only
offered-
three of us, so let's vote. We've talked at various points about the rat nest of wires. I won't call out the specific utility who's the prime offender, but this would be a moment to try to force that to get cleaned up. And we've talked about the possibility at various points of sort of a lattice of lights across, which would create more of a sense of place.
Right.
At the moment, the nighttime lighting feels like enough to keep people safe. That's what it's
Yeah.
about.
Right.
It's not about a place you want to be.
Right.
And yet, it's just interesting at ARC, the lights are still up from the gala in the parking lot. And when they're on at night, it feels like there's a place there, even when nothing's going on.
Yeah,
So
fun.
it's something to think about. We obviously don't own the buildings on either side. So, maybe our eyes are bigger than our stomach, but it's possible that the lighting that could both manifest itself for the art could also enliven the place.
Yeah, absolutely.
That would be great.
Okay.
Would love to, put our heads together about that and other
Yeah.
issues of
Yeah.
of the improvement side
Right.
of this thing. But, overall, what we're doing is really, our vision is to transform the space into a much more livable, walkable, fun place to be.
Right.
And,
Here we have this open space and have had it for a long time
Yeah.
that essentially nobody wants to be in.
Yeah,
It's just a way to get from one place to another.
right.
No, I think it's great, and I applaud you guys for focusing on one project like this. I think that's definitely the way to go
Mhm.
to get your committee up and running.
Yeah, it really became clear that that's what we needed to do.
Yeah.
So that's it.
Okay.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
Will the RFQ go out to just Westchester artists? It's Lower Hudson Valley, I think is what we.
Yeah,
Lower
yeah,
Hudson Valley.
yeah. Right, which I'm not sure what the border of that is, but.
I'd say the border goes as far as a great artist who offers a submission.
Well, as long as they hear about it,
Yeah.
part of the thing is what's the reach of the RFQ, so.
Do you know what it is?
We're discussing that with our Westchester, so that's still something to determine. But it's a good point, it really is an issue. Because it could go up as far as like Woodstock in that area where there's a lot of artists up there,
What would the preference be for a local artist?
That's an interesting question. It would really be great to have, somebody who's more local, certainly to be a part of it. Again, I don't know if we're gonna weight it, when we're in a jury situation. I think we obviously want to make sure that local artists get the message and get the RFQ and put their best work forward.
It's taken us this long because we've considered all the questions that you're asking and, everyone has ideas about how it should go. And, so Stuart and I really worked hard at distilling it down to this. And so this was a question that was posed to us by Arts Westchester and, we could make it into a regional RFQ, but, for the purposes of this being the first, sort of, exhibition or, public art project, we felt that, we wanted to narrow it down to
Hey, Kevin Eubanks.
we want to call Lower Hudson Valley local, but certainly to try to support, surrounding communities as much as possible. And then, next time we'll do a more regional lead that really it benefits, our village and sort of supports again that we are an arts hub.
Mhm. So
That's
the
great.
RFQ says October 22nd. Is that the date, as in
Yeah, we're almost ready.
this week? Yeah.
We're almost ready to send it out.
And will a proposed like honoraria be attached to that, or how will artists know what the,
Well, the
how that'll work.
honoraria would be part of the proposal, the RFP.
Yeah,
Okay.
this is an RFQ.
Okay.
Just, you know,
Got
they're
it.
telling us basically what their artist CV is.
Got it.
is like. And that's, then we sort of like narrow it down. From
Right,
there.
we get candidates out of that we didn't say, hey, we've got a proposal.
So-
Here are the parameters of it, here's the funding.
Got it. So in their world, they expect an RFQ to not have any dollar value assigned to it, just a description of a project. That's-
We're getting some, advice from Arts Westchester on
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Because they've had a lot of experience with that, and that's what they're telling us, yeah.
Great.
Paul Alvarez, who's on Zoom, has typed into the chat, the improvement on lighting on Wheeler could be a game changer for other events like Oktoberfest 2022. So,
Absolutely.
right.
Which was a great, success. So-
Absolutely.
Anyway, it sounds like, it looks like we have a crowd, so.
They're here about art.
They all
Here
came
for
for
you.
public art, Marlene.
Yeah.
It's
we're-
nice to see so much
we're-
support.
Yeah, that's right.
We're not the, but,
Thank you, guys.
Very much.
Very much
very much.
appreciated.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for this good work.
Thank
Can
you.
I just
Really
say,
appreciate it.
Nicole,
Nice to see you too.
so we asked, Paul to come over and give a pre-show speech. Unfortunately, Mountaintop ended, so I'd like to invite both of you for our next show to come over and, sort of see something. So I'll
course.
send out an invitation to both of you.
Okay.
That
And
would be
Peter
great.
does it a lot, and so we're not inviting.
Please don't. You've had enough of me.
All right.
All right,
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks, Marlene. Thanks, Stuart. Okay, next item on our agenda is a follow-up discussion regarding Marijuana Regulation and Taxation Act. As was the case last time, it's a hybrid meeting with folks here and folks via Zoom. So I invite anyone to offer comment. If they have a comment they'd like to add to the record, please come on up. Let us know your name and address and let us know what you think. I am the keeper of this little, right there, Nancy.
Sorry.
If
Confusing.
we
I
got
know
to send you
it's
to
far away
the
from us.
podium. I am going to zoom in on you and you're off and running. Let us know who you are and where you live, even though we know.
I'm Nancy Canday, 12 Summit, and I initially was not in favor of it,
Not in favor of,
initially,
No.
about it being permitted,
not in favor of legalization in general.
correct?
Okay,
Well, legalization, yes, but not in terms of a storefront.
okay.
After giving this a lot of thought, I've actually changed my mind for a number of reasons. I listened to what some of the people were saying, that it turned them into heroin addicts or this or that. I grew up in the 60s and 70s. I never touched drugs or alcohol. My friends did, and not one of them continued. I don't think it leads down a horrible road, but what I do hear is the adamant nature of controlling this. And if we know anything about kids, the more you try to hide it or control it, kids being who they are, they're gonna find a way to do it. From what I hear, there are a lot of adults in this town that partake in it. There's a lot of drinking. There's a lot of cigarette smoking. There's a lot of texting and driving. I do not see how banning it is going to alleviate the control of what kids are gonna do. I would rather it be in the open, not where they have to go somewhere else to get it, because they will. I was an educator for 40 years. I know things parents didn't know, not anything that had. I would say. And I think it's not in all a major reason, but I think the taxation will help the town. And I just don't see how banning it is going to alleviate it. They're going to- So why not protect the kids and be it under our eyes? And I think I'm in the minority. I just saw what happened to everybody I knew who did weed or whatever, and they didn't continue. It didn't take them down a terrible path. They did it, and I got over it. I haven't started, but that's it.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you, Nancy.
Peter,
So
I wonder-
could I just say one thing that I neglected to say at the outset, and that is that, as you know, we were originally scheduled to do this Thursday and had to switch to Monday. David Vinjamori, who had rearranged his schedule to be here Thursday, is teaching tonight and can't be here. But our fifth member, Paul Alvarez, is here via Zoom, feeling a little under the weather and protecting us from joining him in that way. So thank you to all of those.
Peter, just maybe briefly, could you summarize again what it is that we're considering here in case anybody wasn't at the last meeting so that
Sure.
that's clear?
Sure. With the legalization of marijuana in New York State, the use and possession and personal growing of modest amounts of marijuana are permitted anywhere in New York State. So that train has left the station. That isn't a matter up for discussion. What's up for discussion here is that every municipality in New York State has the opportunity to opt out of either having a licensed dispensary, in other words, a retail store, and or a licensed on-site consumption, a marijuana lounge. You can opt out of one, the other, or both. That has to be done by December 31. If we don't opt out, we're automatically in. That's the way the law is written. And an opt out by local law by any municipality in New York by December 31 means that we're out, but we could at a future point vote to change that.
Right. And just to clarify, also a dispensary would be for those 21 and older, correct?
It would, and there's a
So
quite
there's-
elaborate licensing procedure. So here's the basic regulatory story. And New York State, whatever you think of the process, went through a long process examining how this worked in other states. It's a heavily regulated environment, and any village that doesn't or municipality that doesn't opt out has some zoning rights, and we could establish by zoning where such a thing could be. For example, we could deny its right to be on Wheeler or someplace like that. Already written into the law are separation distances from houses of worship and schools and playgrounds, things like that. Our problem, as has been talked about in the past here in Pleasantville, is that by the time you draw the radii around the places you'd rather not have it, there's not too much left. So that's a concern, right?
Hi, good evening. Mary Foxalter, 60 Romer Avenue, 31 years at that site. District office. So I certainly appreciate the village board continuing the conversation on this. And I thought at the last meeting, some excellent points made by Michael and by David and about the regulation of the industry itself right now. And clearly, it's something for people to think about right now, the way it stands. You could walk down Fifth Avenue or walk down downtown in Boston, and people can walk past you smoking marijuana, but you can't walk down those streets drinking a can of beer or a scotch. And that's the status of things right now. So kind of urgent in the part from my perspective, messages to young children, what we're saying to them right now, that really needs to be addressed. So on one level, the uniqueness, no one here is asking, from a Pleasantville Strong's perspective, and for anyone who wants to get current on the research behind that, the website is fantastic. It has tons of data from all kinds of medical places about what's going on with children and their brains and about addiction and what we've learned over the decades. It fundamentally changed my perspective on many things, and it's a wonderful resource for this community to take a look at. So at the end of the day, we do know, Peter, you nailed it. We're sitting on like this 1.7 square mile place, and we did with Pleasantville Strong an environmental survey a number of years ago, which that meant was that you would walk the route that children would walk. And we did it with kids, we did it with adults, and you could walk into, let's say, a convenience store, a gas station, or any other stores around here, the typical walking routes of kids. And at their eye level, all the messaging that they receive about materials that are meant for adults. So what we learned about the science of this is that the more you can build protective factors around children, it's not just Pleasantville Strong, it's not just messaging from parents. It's a real comprehensive approach towards wellness for kids. But environmental factors that give off the lowering of risk to kids, particularly at that age, very damaging. And in Pleasantville, because we're a walking community, they actually are far more exposed to it than others where you would be driving to different places. So that's the uniqueness of the feature here. And the other level that we want to make sure that we're trying to message to kids as much as possible is that, well, if you attend one of our meetings, we would certainly tell you that, you know, people want to come home, and we're not debating whether or not marijuana is legal or not, because it is. But we certainly don't want to message to our children that if you've had a tough day, having a drink or having a joint is really the way to go about to relax. We will tell you, go for a walk, learn how to stress, do mindfulness activities, you know, take up your hobby. That would be better ways. And that's great messaging for children. So that's our perspective from the school district. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
Hey, John.
Hello. John Muller, 52 Guyon Street. I don't know if I'm allowed to do this, but I have a letter here I want to read from Terry Singletary. Am I allowed to do that, or should I just submit it?
Absolutely. Feel free.
This is from Terry Singletary. Terry is grew up here in Pleasantville. He is re-engaged with our kids. He's a football coach, and he's also a recovering addict. And he asked me to read this tonight. I am also 9 years sober. My name is Terry Singletary, a former Pleasantville resident residing at 190 Lakeshore Drive. I am currently a peer counselor at the Lexington Center for recovery coach for Putnam County Treatment Court, as well as a football and basketball coach at the high school. He gives a lot. I don't want to take too much of the board's time because I voiced my opinion in this forum a few times regarding the village to opt out. Addiction is a disease, and there are many factors that attribute to this disease. Mental health is a big one. Family addiction, trauma, etc. Doesn't matter where you grew up, what color you are, whether you have nice parents or not, this disease does not discriminate. Many of us know people who struggle with alcohol or drugs, and it's not pretty. Many of us don't recover. Is alcohol or marijuana a gateway drug? You better believe they are. We can, I let you speak. Why don't you let us speak? You don't know what you're doing, okay? No, I just want to say, we sat here quietly and we spoke, so now give me the opportunity?
Yeah.
Thank you. Is alcohol or marijuana a gateway drug? You better believe they are. We can choose to ignore this fact, and if we do, that's a shame in my opinion. Amazing work is going on in our town by the Hallorans and the BTH Foundation focusing on mental health. When a person struggles with mental health issues, a relief to those issues is self-medication, so that a person doesn't have to feel or deal with the uncomfortable emotions. This is a big issue with our youth and, quite frankly, adults as well. As I said before, I work in this field of addiction and have clients from 14 to 18. These children are addicted to marijuana, opiates, and such as Xanax and Clonopine, which kids get from their parents' medicine cabinets. Every child I work with started smoking marijuana first. I started smoking marijuana before I picked up opiates. We can choose to ignore these facts and the problems we have in our community. And that's a personal choice, but I will not. And many times we think this can't happen to my child or myself until it does. Knowing what I know and living with this disease for many years, there's absolutely no way I could be in favor of having a dispensary in Pleasantville. I'm not naive to the medical benefits of medical marijuana or the revenue that legal marijuana will bring to certain towns and cities. But in my opinion, none of that is worth the realities of our drug problem in this country, which, by the way, has been put on the back burner through the pandemic. Again, thank you for John reading me this letter, and thank you all for your time. So that's from Terry Singletary. Again, a guy who gives to this town, has always given. My kids were coached by him in football, and he's just a fantastic guy. He's been through addiction. I was never addicted before, and I'm not a marijuana user, but I will say this. This is from someone who was a heroin addict. So he has something to say.
No doubt.
He has some interesting evidence because he lived it. I would also talk about and learn this in Pleasantville Strong. I'm not part of Pleasantville Strong anymore. So I'm not lobbying for them. But I will say this, there's a thing called inverse risk. And what happens is what you see in certain studies is that when something becomes legal, the risk perception, the perception of risk for children goes down. So usage goes up. When something is illegal, the perception of risk goes up and then usage goes down. These are white papers, these are research papers. I got the sense last time that everybody was on board for at least waiting until New York State comes out with their rules and regulations. Has anything changed with any of our elected officials here with that?
I mean, I can't speak for anybody else, and there are three of us here, Paul, by Zoom. But I think the sense of the board is to opt out. And I think the set of reasons for that may be diverse, but some of them track what you've just said.
Yeah, I feel as though at the very least, we can wait until we know what the rules are. There's absolutely no sense, and I don't believe that you guys doing all kinds of other studies for walking districts and development and everything else don't know every last thing. The studies that go on for secret and everything else take up years sometimes. Right?
They do, yes.
Years. So for us to jump into something that has not been completely legislated is a huge mistake. So I urge all of you to continue on this path. And I would also be interested if it's going to go to a vote. Do we have a date yet?
So as I mentioned the last time, for procedural reasons, it's logical to vote in the last week of December. I say that in the hypothetical that we vote to opt out and are challenged by a petition, that would occur at the normal time, March.
And what would the petition take if that happened?
It would take 20, am I right? 20% of the electors?
Yeah.
Right. So mind you, opting in is not an action of the board. We're in. Every municipality in New York is in unless they opt out. So if we opt out by December 31, which I think is likely, it's what's called a permissive referendum. And people who thought we shouldn't have opted out could pass around a petition. And if they got 20% of the eligible voters to sign it, it would force a referendum. The village board could also vote to opt out, but vote to give up the petition process and push it to referendum right off the bat. But for those of you who hold your position, for example, that we should opt out, it's hard to see why that would be in your interest.
Yeah, no, I just would encourage you to bring it to a vote as soon as possible. Good government and good democracy is if it does turn into something where people want it, let it go to a referendum. Let people vote for it. I don't think it'll happen.
So there is no referendum except the referendum to challenge and opt out.
Right. So
we have no other option.
Right.
We don't have the right to do anything different.
Right. But that's even fine. I mean, then you're really hearing the will of the people. But if we don't opt out, we're just hearing from the board.
Yeah. So again, for procedural reasons, it's my intention, as I said the last time, that in the month of November, we tell you what we're going to do. We probably won't actually do it until the end of December for those procedural reasons.
Yeah, John, I just want to say, from a few people I've heard from in the community, one in particular who happens to live close to me, I get a sense of a little bit of impatience because some communities have already voted to opt out. But I just want to make it clear that whether we opt out now or whether we opt out in December, the result will be identical. You know, that there's no risk of a dispensary occurring, you know, there's no greater risk if we wait until December. And there are two motivations for not rushing the vote. One is so that we can hear from everybody in the community, which we feel is our responsibility.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Can you pull the microphone a little closer?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Oh, right. Okay.
Talk loud.
The problem with the mask, you know, you feel so muffled behind this thing. So I was saying, I was responding to the sense that I've gotten from some people of impatience about the fact that we haven't yet voted on this issue. So I wanted to explain why that was the case and to say, I hear you. Government can be slow. Believe me, I often feel frustrated and impatient about how slow things can be. But I wanted to reassure you, first of all, that opting out in December and opting out now, the result will be identical. And that our reasons for not rushing to vote are one, so that we can hear from everybody in the community, because we it's our responsibility to do so. And secondly, the procedural piece of it that Peter was speaking to, which is that if in the hypothetical, which seems to me unlikely, but nonetheless, of a referendum, that then it would coincide with when we would normally have an election. Does that make sense?
No, it does,
Is
I
that-
understand that. I just.
And recognize, I mean, a referendum, a petition to force a referendum would have to mean that a lot of people signed.
That's right. I'm well aware of that.
Yeah,
Well,
so
that-
I just,
that's why-
I just wanted to make it clear, because it's not that we're sort of, what's the expression? Dragging our feet or something like that. We're just sort of proceeding according to form. So I just wanted to make that clear.
Okay, so nothing's changed really then, as far as,
Nothing has
I don't think so. I
changed.
mean, we've
Yeah.
gotten feedback as in the week that has followed a couple of weeks since our last one, and we will get some more feedback. But in general, I would say that feedback tracks what we've heard in the room.
Mhm.
Certainly, some folks have come with a dissenting view, a different view, and they've made reasonable points.
yeah, no, that's absolutely.
You know, here's where we're struggling. And I say struggling. I think our intentions are pretty clear, but the world's changing around us, and the question is, what do we do about it?
Yeah, I think the key
right.
too is our concern, to your point, Nicole, is that
Mhm.
we're seeing other villages opt out.
Right.
And so it becomes a more concerning thing, because if we don't opt out, then we're getting a lot of extra traffic in Pleasantville. That's only 1.7 square.
Right.
miles.
But my point is, a village that or town that opts out, in October, and one that opts out in December, the end result is
The end result is
identical. So,
identical,
yeah.
yes, I get that.
And recognize, if you're on a November election cycle, your time dynamics were different from ours. We're in a March election cycle. Is it imaginable that we would vote to opt out and 20% of the community would sign a petition to try to force us back in? I think, as Nicole already said, that seems pretty unlikely, but nonetheless, that's what the law allows. And
And I'm
right.
not opposed to that. Like, what,
Yeah.
I think that's the way democracy is supposed to work.
Right.
That certain people shouldn't be making decisions for everybody. If the will of the people in Pleasantville is to do this, then I think most of us can live with it. I don't think the will is there.
I agree with you.
That's where
Yeah.
the decision should be made.
I mean, I think the
If
likely,
we were to opt in any way, shape, or form, it should be through that process.
Yeah, and as Peter
except
said,
that, could I interrupt
sorry.
there? That
Yeah.
that isn't an option for us. We do not have the option of saying, okay, village, you vote, you decide. That's not legal in New York.
No, but if 20% of the voting populace gets a petition signed, then what happens next? Then there is a potential referendum.
To overturn
That's what I'm saying.
our opt-out. Right.
I get all this.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is that if it's gonna happen in any way, it should happen that way.
And that right will always be there.
Yeah.
That right is there for any action that we take that's subject to permissive referendum, and that's quite a few of them.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
thanks.
Well, my name is Mike DeGilio, 1 Springfield Court. Been living here in Pleasantville 13 years. I've got a 13-year-old and an 8-year-old. So this is a little personal for me. I'm a licensed pharmacist. Been licensed over 30 years now. My grandfather taught me something about 35 years ago before he died. He said, you can't put crap back in a horse. Of course, he used much more colorful. The problem I have with this law is, the way I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong, you could opt out, but opt back in at any time.
Yes.
But if
Correct.
you opt in, you can't opt out.
That's
Opting in is not taking any action at all.
That's pretty cute the way it's written, if you think about it. It's pretty slick.
I mean, in the defense of the state, we all, the municipalities across the state, lobbied hard for the right to opt out.
I know.
And they gave it to us, which at one point in time seemed unlikely. So I give them credit for that.
Well, so I got a couple issues with this, first of all. Anybody who thinks that marijuana is not a gateway drug is lying to themselves. You have absolutely no idea what you're talking about. I studied the drug. I studied the chemicals that are involved. It is highly addictive. There's hundreds, if not thousands, of research papers. You could look them up. Everything's on Google now. I encourage everybody to look it up and study it. Another point, the amount of poisonings, marijuana poisonings happening to young children now in these states that have legalized this drug is unbelievable. And I'd like to read you something that just came out this past summer. This is from the Upstate New York Poison Center. It's under upstate.edu, Syracuse, New York. The Upstate New York Poison Center has seen a drastic increase so far this year in the number of calls to our poison center for children and teens. So this isn't just teens, this is preteens who have been exposed to marijuana products. The data shows that the calls have nearly tripled for teens who have used these products from January through May just of this year. Okay? Man, you could choose not to look at me, but it's okay. I'm reading what the Poison Center.
Sir, please speak to us.
address to
You're
us.
speaking to us.
Address
My
yourself to
apologies.
us.
We worry, quote unquote, we worry about young children and the frightening reaction they can have to marijuana. These products come in bright colored packaging that looks just like candy. Kids can't always tell the difference, especially for those who do not read. This is even being marketed to kids that young, okay? With the state legalizing possessions of small amounts of marijuana for recreational use and coming up with a plan for future retail sales operations, we are preparing to handle an even further influx of calls in the coming years. I just want to end with one other thing. I've got a very close cousin, he's 59 years old. He was like a brother to me. We grew up in a very tight Italian family. My aunts and uncles, my cousins, they all lived next door to us. He was a pharmacist also. He's now homeless, living in White Plains, 2 failed marriages, lost his pharmacy license, lost his driver's license. He's been in and out of prison. Why? Because he started using marijuana. His life has been destroyed. He stole $80,000 from his parents. It destroyed his family. He has 3 children. His oldest son changed his name because he wants nothing to do with him. So please think about just think really hard what you're saying when you're saying it's okay to allow this in this town. Listen, we know it's legal in the state. It is what it is. But don't let it be legal here. My kid walks around this town with his buddies all the time. He even told me, I told him, he asked me, what are you going to town for? I told him. He says, why would they want to legalize it? All right, the kid's 13. He's smart enough to know, thank God, right from wrong. So please, think about what you're going to do at the end of December. That's all I ask.
Okay, thank you, sir. And to be clear, we're going to tell you what we're going to do in November. But also to be clear, marijuana is legal in Pleasantville above our pay grade.
I understand.
The question is just retail,
Correct.
sir. Okay, thank you. Yes, sir.
Thank you, everybody. I just have a brief statement to read, and thank you for the time. My name is Brian Bruder. I'm a 20-year resident of Westboro Avenue. Excuse me. Got any of these? And an administrator and an educator in secondary education in Westchester for over 15 years, teaching and coaching young adults during that time. I thank you for all your service to our community and your perspectives on this issue. But I feel this board should have sent a strong, or a Pleasantville strong, message at the first discussion last month to our community, especially our young people and our law enforcement that work very hard to protect our village, especially our young ones, and that you guys will join other communities like Bronxville, like Larchmont, like Somers, and close to 10 others in opting out. And I ask you to go as far as to never consider opting in. That's a Pleasantville strong thing to do, especially with an organization named the same that you will passionately endorse and support in order to protect our children against addiction. Hats off to John Muller and his staff for what you have done and continue to do. Opting in, whether now or down the road, for so-called economic opportunities, which I heard in the first session. Please don't keep that door open on this issue in 2022 and justify it with economic opportunity. This village board is dedicated, this village board is smart, and I'm sure it can come up with more creative and productive ways of creating additional economic opportunity than putting up a pot shop in our village. And if you decide to opt in to show that you are the village board that is a beacon of so-called progressivism, let's not sugarcoat our new retail outlet with politically correct items like cannabis. Call it what it is. It's Pleasantville's pot, and we do not want to be Westchester's home for Pleasantville pot. Put it where the old pharmacy is, since half the sign is already done. And think of how lucky our young ones will be to paint the storefront windows leading to next year's Ragamuffin Parade. Imagine a young adolescent painting a picture of Frankenstein and joking and painting him smoking, Frankenstein smoking the joint. Please let us not go there, okay? Please let us not go there. I and many in this community ask you to be strong. And yes, again, Pleasantville strong, and send a clear and decisive message that this is not progress. This is not progressivism in our village and never will be. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other speakers, come on up. Let me just in the chat. Susan says, can you clarify what would need to be done to opt back in once legislation around dispensaries is complete? Is that still a referendum? And I think the answer to that is it's another local law that whoever sits on the village board at some point in the future could enact a local law to reverse the decision of this board if we opt out. And I assume, without knowing for sure, that that would be subject to permissive referendum, just as this one is. Is that your belief, Eric? Okay, that's the answer to the question in the chat. Yes, welcome.
Hi, I'm Susan Todd. I live at 99 Church Street, and I'm the mother of 2 children, teens, and I completely support opting out of the marijuana sales in our village. I've listened to the arguments from the last meeting, in particular Pleasantville Strongs, and I see no reason at all for the board to consider anything but opting out. Our teens' health should be the utmost concern of the boards. We're already facing an epidemic of vaping nicotine, and marijuana is vaped too. And I was just reading a study from the University of Michigan that said that vaping marijuana even has more probability of causing lung damage to teens that do it. The peer pressure to engage in vaping and smoking pot is intense. And just today, I was walking in one of our parks, and there was a group of 5 kids smoking pot. And you know, the studies and experience that were presented by Pleasantville Strong shows that, and others here tonight who have had addiction issues, shows that it definitely leads to more drug experimentation. I mean, that's just a fact. I think also that advertising is a big problem here. I see the kids walk around the town all the time, even going by the tattoo shop. I think that just seeing that tattoo shop makes more kids want to have tattoos. That's how kids are. They relate to their environment. And what's in the the markets in the gas stations, that's where, I mean, there's, I could count all the places like the school did where you can buy vapes, where you can get alcohol. And I certainly think that if we had a pot dispensary in town, there's going to be some older person who's going to buy the pot and easily give it to somebody. Because kids are, they're kids that are into pot, they just text somebody and it comes in the mailbox. It's a really sad situation, and I think all of us should be working to try to work with Pleasantville Strong to keep our kids as healthy as possible. And we do so many good things, like all the activities that we have in the town for young people. But I do think we need to emphasize even more doing things for teens, because I think teens have a special need that maybe if they're not involved in sports or something, they really need some other projects in town that help them feel a part of the town. So that's all I have to say, but I do feel so strongly about it. I would definitely want to opt out and stay out.
Thank you, Susan.
Thank you.
Other speakers?
Whoa, you have the things there?
Good evening. My name is Joseph Tucholo. I'm a resident here since 1999. I currently live on 5 Iroquois Road. And so I think a lot of great things have been said in this session and the last session. I think what I'm just going to tell you guys a little story. I have 3 children. They're all 4 years apart. I was the one who married when we graduated. I got the pleasure of having all 3 rotate schools at the same time.
True.
So this year I had an 8th grade graduation of high school and college.
Talk to him.
Well, I really tried back there.
Yeah.
So with that,
Were they all 100% attendance? Isn't that another award, right? All right.
good attendance,
Yeah.
Better than I like to walk this, but on a serious note, I'm going to tell you a quick short story about my 18-year-old Matthew, who just graduated. When vaping he was around 7th grade, vaping really became popular in this town. And we had a discussion about why it wasn't appropriate. And I explained to him that it's a gateway, that vaping leads to pot, and pot leads to other things. And I think it kind of sounded good. You never really know, right? So a couple of years later, I said, you were right, Dad. I said, about what? We don't hear that very often, right? He says, well, that whole vaping thing. Really? Yeah, so, and he would share, and we'll never share names, but he shared the names of a couple of his friends that one thing led to another. And then those same kids, who some of them were star athletes, some of them were very strong, led to other problems. And then we progressed, and he said, you were really right, Dad. I said, what? This couple, last year, I said, why? He goes, well, 5 of them had to go away for drug problems. Good kids. And we're talking about 5, and first of all, about 100 kids a grade, right? That's 5%. That's ones I know, right? And of the boys, it's probably 10%. So we sit here and we can kid ourselves about the truth about where things are. The law is the law. It's very clear that this village does not want it in this boundary. It's been here a long time. And I think what John and others are saying here is we want it to be very clear and send a strong message. It's over, right? Like end this debate, make a very strong message. And if people don't think it's right, go get your referendum and they'll get voted down. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other speakers? Go on up.
Good evening, my name is Michael Dundee. I'm a resident at 106 Pleasantville Road, and I've been a resident here in Pleasantville since 2000. And I just want to thank you for your leadership and hearing from the community on this very important matter that affects all of us. My thoughts that I'd like to share with the board. I think a lot has been said about marijuana being a gateway drug. I don't want to go into a very lengthy testimony about that, but in my teenage years, I became a daily marijuana user, which led to heavier drug abuse with narcotics. It had a very devastating effect on my young adult years in college, which eventually led me to having to take a little break from college to kind of get my act together. Where by the grace of God, I've been chemical free and marijuana free for 23 years. So it is gateway drug. I have been involved in that circle and in that world enough to know from my own experience and from the experience of many, many other people that it's a very damaging and destructive drug. It's highly intoxicating. Today's marijuana, the potency is terrifying compared to what was, used in the early 1990s when I was using it. The point that I'd like to just emphasize, and I feel like there's been so many eloquent speakers up here tonight and in the last meeting, is really just to emphasize that we have a very special quality and character to the village of Pleasantville. I really feel like this is a community and this is a village that is very different from other places in Westchester. It's not like Chappaqua. It's not like Briarcliff. It's not like Valhalla. We have a true village. We have a very intimate village life here with, it's a walking town where our children are constantly on the streets walking around. We have something very special here. People want to be here. There's a reason why it's the housing inventory is usually very low. It's not a transient town. People want to be here. People want to be here from New York City. We don't see a lot of high turnover of people buying their home here and then selling. People buy here, they move here, and they stay here to raise their children, often for 10, 20, 30 plus years. There's a reason for that. Pleasantville is a great place. It's a unique place in Westchester County. And I feel as if we allow marijuana dispensaries and retail shops to be in our little downtown, it changes the flavor and the character of our town. And it's not what we want. We don't want it to become a place where it has that, kind of drug, ease of accessibility quality. And I think that if we can maintain, I'll say a wholesomeness to our town, this will continue to be a desired place. There's a lot of people, particularly parents, they're looking for a haven from what's going on in the world. A lot of parents are not happy about the decisions that the state of New York have made. And they're looking for a place to come that's protected, that can help shield their children from the onslaught of what's coming. And we have the opportunity now to make a statement that Pleasantville doesn't buy into what's going on and preserve the special quality that we have here. And I urge the board to please consider that.
Thank you, sir. Let me just say that I think some of what you said is exactly why we're all sitting here and spend the hours we do doing this. And as you know, not everybody agrees on this, both in Pleasantville and regionally and in New York State. And now we're like the 18th state that has legalized marijuana. So the world is changing around us. That isn't a vote that suggests that I'm in favor of this. I don't think we're doing so well with the vices we already have. That said, the challenge confronting us is to hear everybody, and we're hearing you loud and clear. Commentary on the other side, for the most part, has not been in these formats, but also not nearly as voluminous. So, good news from that standpoint. But I do think one of the challenges we're all going to confront, and likely it won't be this board that confronts it, is 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 years from now, marijuana and alcohol are likely to be rather parallel in their treatment by society. That seems to be where we're headed. Now, 18 states having legalized it. So I don't know what the world looks like, and that isn't necessarily an argument to suggest that the way forward for us is any different from what you have all proposed, other than to say we're also clear on the many ways in which we can't build a white picket fence around us. And what we're all trying to do is maintain just what you described.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, I have said before that I'm in favor of opting out. I mean, I was on the board when the possibility of marijuana being legalized first came up, before it was actually done. And we, as a board, wrote a letter to the states saying that we would like the possibility to opt out. And one of the reasons we cited was that we felt that Pleasantville was too small of a community for a dispensary to be a reasonable thing within our community. A lot of the things that were said tonight resonate with me. I have an 11-year-old and a 13-year-old, and so these issues are sensitive and pressing. At the same time, I agree with Peter that the world around us is changing and that these challenges are ongoing. It makes me sort of shudder to hear the story about when vaping became a thing among middle school kids. But the reality is that these challenges are there, whether we have a dispensary here or not, which is not to say that that's a reason to have one. But I think, our kids are going to have access to marijuana, whether we have that or not, and our kids have access to alcohol. So I just wanted to, this is kind of parallel to what we're discussing tonight, but I think it's important that we remember as parents and as adults that the behavior we model is really going to be paramount in terms of our children's behavior, not only with marijuana, but also with alcohol, which of course is already very much present in our community. So I just wanted to say that.
All right. Michael Callan on Zoom asked if he could speak. Can you promote him to a speaker there, and Alyssa?
You can just unmute himself and start.
Okay. Hello, Michael Callan.
Hello, can you hear me? Can you see me?
We hear you.
Hi.
We see.
Thanks for letting me on. My name is Michael Callan. I'm a resident at 112 Sorrels Lane. This is my first time hearing one of these discussions. I'm new to the village, and it's been great being here. So thank you for everything that you've done so far. I do also have a child here, and I'm very excited for them to enter the schools and be able to one day walk around through the village like we get to do, me and my friends who I invite here and who all really see what a great walking community this is. Similar to being in the city, you get the benefits of the restaurants and the business that I know you've all worked so hard to promote. So one of the short-term oppositions that I have to this that I don't believe I've heard is that, and I'm a practicing criminal law attorney, I know personally that there's no instrument for law enforcement to be able to detect a driver's impairment by marijuana. And if neighboring communities are opting out and we do not, we'd be, as other speakers have mentioned, we'd be inviting them to be coming here to visit the dispensary or lounge, and basically be driving through here. So we would be subjecting our community, our walking community, to the dangers of impaired drivers, while knowing that we don't have any real valid law enforcement tool to be able to negate any impaired drivers. So I think that we would be in the short term, we would be subjecting our community to dangers. And that's just something I want to mention briefly because I haven't heard anybody else say it. Of course, there's no long-term issues of everything else that everybody's mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Michael. I mean, you raise a point that has been raised by the police chief. It's an issue with legal. I have a tongue problem. An issue in general. It's been an issue in some other states, and it's certainly an issue here. It's an issue we confront now, sadly, but as you rightly point out, that I think is one of the reasons why even communities that have talked about legalizing dispensaries have frequently opted out of consumption lounges. So those are two different votes. And I think, as already stated, the likelihood is that we vote to opt out of both of them. So
That's a good point.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else? Any other takers, comments of any sort? All right. Oh, come on up. Sure.
Real quick, just a real quick comment. Kind of gets back to that old saying, just because you could do something, doesn't mean you should. You know, so just another little point.
Understood.
Okay.
All right. So here's my report. Oh, another speaker. Yes.
Thank you very much. Brian McDermott, 20-year resident, 25 Brookfield Place, still raising one more, 4 children in this community. So thank you for your service to the village of Pleasantville. We appreciate all that you've done. And also thank you for sharing that you're going to let us know your intentions in November for the December decision time. That's important. Something resonated with me that Michael said, and I just want to share a story. My kids all play travel lacrosse, and we travel around quite a bit on the East Coast. And this past summer, we got to go up to Amherst, Massachusetts. And Massachusetts, marijuana is legal. And our hotel was outside of Amherst. It was in Northampton, and there's a dispensary in Northampton. I didn't know that.
The granola belt there, right?
Across the street from the dispensary, a Marriott. I encourage anyone who drives up there to go check it out, just to see the traffic alone. And it was a quiet little town before the dispensary was put in, and they made a special roundabout for the traffic, and we pulled in after a full day of games on the fields at about 6 p.m. and the traffic was insane in Northampton, Massachusetts, for people trying to just get into this dispensary. I'm sure any study that the town did prior to agreeing to put it there, whatever, this exceeded whatever their expectations were. But I guarantee it. But what I found interesting was when we parked in Marriott right across the street, were all the foot traffic going back and forth from the Marriott parking lot to the dispensary. So I checked in, and the managers just happened to check me in, and I asked, what's the story across the street? And I still didn't know it was a dispensary. And he said, oh, that's a marijuana dispensary. It opened up a couple of years ago, and the traffic is insane. And he goes, well, what makes it worse for me is all the New York and Connecticut license plates parked in my lot, buying their gummy bears, getting in their car and driving home. And then it kind of dawned on me that, wait, Connecticut, it's not, at the time wasn't legal, and New York at the time wasn't legal. And, Michael brings up a good point. And you think about, we have the Taconic Parkway very close, we've got the Sawmill Parkway, we have a train station, if all the surrounding community, or majority of the surrounding communities opt out, and we don't, again, it's going to be problematic for us. That there's no doubt about it. So again, I'm in favor of opting out. I'm glad you are, and I look forward to hearing from you in November. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Can I ask you a quick question, legal question?
Mm-hmm.
So for kids, technically, legally, they can't drink until they're 21, correct?
Right.
What's the legal age that kids are,
21.
21.
for marijuana?
Yes.
Oh,
21. All right. So
if somebody gets stopped smoking, what happens to them?
21. You're not consumption or possession of marijuana under age 21 remains a crime. It is legal only for people 21 and older. So, the point you just made was, I've talked to a whole bunch of people, as you can imagine. And
About, the smoke issue. Oh, maybe we could take a section where it could go. What section is that?
we've not addressed that question. Yeah, the question was, the speaker in the audience is asking, where might we put it if we zoned it somewhere? And honestly, it's not a matter we have really addressed. We've already pointed out that when you identify the places where you don't want it, not very much is left, as Mary already pointed out. So, obviously that circumstance is very different there are in other places. And I can tell you there are a bunch of places upstate that skew very conservative, that are very much in favor of this for a variety of other reasons. So what I can say is, a couple of people have mentioned the revenue piece of it. That's never been a concern of ours. We're not imagining, first off, as already reported, we are likely to opt out. But even opting in, it's not a money issue. There's not enough money there that it would make any difference to us. And so, that's just not on the table for this board. So, all right. So I hope you're all on our Pleasantville news email, pleasantville-ny.gov, left column, subscribe to news. You'll automatically get our agendas if you so choose. And I would say at our meeting on the 8th or the 22nd, those are our two regular meetings, we'll have a straw poll of our intentions as reported. For procedural reasons having nothing to do with our intentions. We're likely not to take action until the last week of December. The reason for that being that if there were to be a petition against our decision to opt out, I view that as highly unlikely based on the feedback we've gotten so far, like nearly unimaginable, but possible nonetheless. It would make more sense timing-wise. So.
I just want to say hello and point out that two former students of mine in the audience, Brian McDermott and Brian Bruder, and Paul Alvarez on the screen. How unique is that?
All right, Mary, rescind the retirement, get another generation.
Thanks for coming
Yeah.
to see us in person and
Yeah. It feels like old times.
yeah.
So here's hoping old times are back. So,
Yeah, without the masks would be better, but
yeah. Thank you all. You're welcome to stay for the less interesting part of our meeting.